That's pretty great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing that. So, Sister Donna, it's a similar question.
Yeah.
What is it for you that sort of made you finally come to that conclusion?
I think for me, like, it wasn't just one thing. I think like, growing up in the church, and I guess as I got older and started to, socialize more with people from work and, people outside of the church, and just kind of seeing different opinions of the world really made me question a lot of things about the church, like just all the sexism and the homophobia and the racism and, this whole purity culture and everything. Like, it made me really reflect on, I guess, all of those points of doctrine that just didn't sit well with me. So, like, in my journey out of the church, it kind of coincided with the onset of COVID, and where we were having to stay home. So because I wasn't going to church anymore, I felt relieved. Like, I didn't, for a while I hadn't been enjoying going to church. We'd moved into a new ward. My husband and I at the time, like, we didn't know anyone. We didn't make any really close friends. So there was no, like, good social aspect there. We felt like we weren't super included. So, like, when my husband, like, he didn't like going to church at all. And it was a struggle to try and get him to go. Like, he still very firmly believes in the church, as a religion and everything. He just didn't like attending on Sunday just because he didn't really know the people. He didn't really feel very included, and it was more of I think a social thing for him. And I guess for me, I felt that as well, but I think, like, because I was fairly firm in my testimony for a long time, I was like, there was a lot of things where I was like, I don't enjoy this. It doesn't really bring me joy, but God tells me that it should. And, the church is telling me that it should. And, if I'm not feeling happy with this, like, it's because of me. It's because I'm not being faithful enough, or I'm not trying hard enough. And ultimately, like, I need to be doing these things. Like, I need to be keeping the Sabbath day holy and going to church every Sunday so that I can, store up all these blessings in heaven and be able to, be exalted and fulfill that whole, plan of happiness thing, right? So that was always sort of how I felt. And so I guess, but because I didn't enjoy going to church, when COVID happened and we were told to stay home, like, it was a relief. Like, I really was like, sweet, because I don't really get along with the people there that well. I don't feel very well connected to anyone, and I don't enjoy going. It's hard because my husband didn't like to go most of the time, and it was always such it was always an argument every Sunday about whether he would go or not. And there was a lot of times where I had to go alone, and I hated that as well, because, like, being a married person, like, going to church without your partner, it's just like everyone's kind of looking at you like, oh, where's so-and-so? And I have to make excuses for him and just be like, oh, well, he's not feeling well, because I don't want to throw him under the bus and just be like, well, he's just, not as faithful as me. Like, he just doesn't like going because he doesn't like any of you guys. So it was a relief to not go to church anymore. And then I think it was during that time, because I wasn't going to church as much, I had, I guess, a little bit more free time on the weekends. And I think it was just during that time that I reflected a lot more on my beliefs and and I was talking a lot with, my friends at work and stuff about, their sort of belief systems, and I think I just kind of came to a realization that the church was not bringing me joy. It wasn't, like, I was doing everything really for church out of a feeling of obligation and out of this, like, thing where I was like, well, you know, this isn't making me happy, but it will in the end. Like, you know, one day I'll get to go to heaven and I'll have like that whole eternal life exaltation thing, and I'll be so glad that I made all of these sacrifices in my time and in my money and all this. But I think during that time away from church, where I didn't have, I guess, the brainwashing happening like every Sunday, yeah, I just got to think more about it, and I was like, this is not making me happy. You know, God is, you know, he seems like a bit of a dick because of XYZ. Like, there were so many things that I had put on a shelf that, you know, like, I just kind of put down to, well, I don't know God, and God's ways are higher than my ways, and, like, it'll all be explained in the end. I'm sure he's got a very, very good reason for not allowing black men to have the priesthood for this long. Like, I'm sure he's got a great reason for, you know, creating people that are gay, but then not letting them be with the people they love. I'm sure he's got a great reason for, you know, like, killing innocent children. I'm sure there's a reason. Like, I will find out when I die, right? Like, that's the message that was fed to me for so long. And, but yeah, like, I think that time away, I just was like, no, you know, it doesn't make sense. I want answers now. I can't, like, I'm a young person. It's going to be a long time, probably, before I die. And I don't want to keep living my life feeling, you know, sad and confused because I'm following this church, and this belief system that doesn't really line up with the things that I care about, because, you know, yeah, like, I care about the happiness of other people. Like, I want, you know, my gay friends to be able to have the same rights to get married as me. I want, you know, like, I don't think it's fair, like, all the sexism in the church as well was another big shelf item for me. You know, this idea that, like, I needed to be married to get to heaven, like, to have that highest degree. Anyway, so, you know, like, this guy that I'm married to, he's not even going to church. Like, if he's not going to make it to the celestial kingdom, then I'm fucked. Like, you know, I can't get there without him. So I'm just like, well, what the hell, like, is the point in me trying so hard to live this perfect Mormon life if he's not doing the same thing? It doesn't matter, because I need him to get to heaven. And, like, so yeah, I think all of that eventually just made me be like, fuck this. Like, I'm not happy. I'm not enjoying this. I'm doing all of these things in a hope of this, like, grand eternal exaltation that may not even happen because the partner I'm with, like, doesn't seem as invested in being as obedient as me. And, like, and then I think more, so, like, I think that was sort of my initial thoughts. And then I guess as I had more time away, I realized that, yeah, like, there's just so many things in the church that I didn't agree with and that didn't sit right with me, and that I couldn't just wait until the end of my life to have answers for those things. So yeah, that's essentially what broke my shelf, was me realizing that I wanted to live my life and be happy in my life and not wait until I was dead to experience that.
I think one thing that the church does on purpose is keep people really busy, so that way they don't have time to think about the problems. Because that's one of the things, is there's a lot of loopholes, there's a lot of problems. Everybody gets spiritually fatigued, and if you're busy, then you don't have time to question why you're like that. Yeah,
well, I mean, you think about, like, how much time in the week, like, church takes up, right? So, like, they tell you that you should be praying and reading your scriptures every single day. You know, you have family home evening once a week, normally on a Monday night. You've got church on Sunday. You might have, if you're in youth, you'll have, like, the mutual or, like, you know, young women's, young men's activity nights. If you're in YSA, you'll have institute, or like, if you're in youth seminary as well, like, every single day. So, you know, and then you've got, like, potlucks. Efforts. Yeah, then you've got, like, feeding the missionaries and stuff, and you've got service projects and potlucks and, like, you know, and then you've got like general conference twice a year, which is like a mass like brainwashing
plus
thing.
state conference as well.
Yeah, you also have like you know, camps and what am I thinking of? Treks, EFY, like all of these things that kind of keep you, just constantly fed information like by the church. And I do really, when I think about it now, I'm like, yeah, it really is kind of a brainwashing thing. And the other thing, I guess, is like, because you're paying tithing as well, there's sort of this like financial investment in the church. You're just like, well, if I'm going to be paying 10% of my money to this shit, like I better be getting like my all out of it. You know, like I'm not going to pay tithing, but not go to church every Sunday. Like that doesn't make sense, you know, like, cause if I'm paying 10% of my money, but I'm not going to church every Sunday, I'm still not going to get to heaven. So I might as well like do all of the things. Otherwise, like that money that I'm spending is kind of useless. Does that make sense?
Well, that's the thing.
Premium membership for brainwashing.
Yeah.
It is a premium membership, and that, it costs a lot to actually retain that membership. It's not as simple as just doing one or two things.
Yeah.
If you miss one link in the chain, then you've essentially wasted everything.
Yeah.
You know, all the money, all the time, all the efforts that you've put in across your whole lifespan. You've got to do it the whole time. Your whole life, you have to be 100% perfect to be able to do this. Sure, you got repentance, but at the end of the day, the point is not doing that. And it's a lot of work and a lot of effort to be able to keep up with that. And you don't actually have time to think about it until you pull away from one or two aspects.
Yeah. And I think if you've been raised in the church as well, like me and like you guys, like it's all you've ever known. Like that expectation of you has been set from birth. Like you were literally taught your entire time growing up that, you know, your goal is to get married, have kids, you know, endure to the end, be perfectly obedient so that you can have celestial glory. So that you can be exalted and become a god and do all of those things. Like that, you know, just becomes the only thing that matters to you. And for me, it was, like everything just felt like I had to do all of these things that I wasn't happy with. Like, you know, I was speaking to somebody earlier today. They were asking me about, you know, the Mormon garments, and they're like, did you have to wear those? Like, did you wear them every day? And I'm like, yeah, I did. And he was like, I mean, what was that like? And I was like, I hated it. I fucking hated it. Like, I did not enjoy garments at all. There was never a point where I put on my, like, holy underwear and was like, you know what, I feel so connected to God right now. Like, I feel so blessed to have this privilege. Like, never at any point in my entire time while wearing garments did I ever feel that way. It was just like, oh man, this fucking, like, whatever. You just kind of get used to it.
I'll admit, mine and mum are a little bit comfortable.
I don't know. Mine, like, because I work outside, so in the summer, it was bullshit. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, why do I need these special underwear to remind me of my commitments to God? Like, I already know. Like, as if I'm gonna, like, wake up one morning and forget that I've promised my entire life to this religion. Like, you know.
Well, here's another question. For both of you, did the temple impact in any way yourself?
Oh, yes. Absolutely, yes.
Kind of. Like, I think my parents did a very good job of preparing me for the temple and brainwashing me into being like, oh yes, this is such a great time for you. My dad actually had a really traumatic time going through the temple, and so he had prepared me probably more than he was allowed to. But I do remember getting to the prayer circle part and thinking, am I in a cult? This feels like a cult.
And it was at that moment.
It was at that moment she realised she'd fucked up.
Yeah.
I think we're going to have to do a temple episode very soon, because there's a lot of things in there that people may not realise unless they've actually been through the temple. Even normal members of the church that haven't been through the temple would have no idea what's going on in those prayer circles and those chantings. And
we need to talk to the children, save them before they get to that point.
Think of the children.
Save the children.
Please. No, I was not, I don't think I was that well prepared. I did go to temple prep classes before going through the temple, but...
They don't teach you shit in those classes.
No, because the thing is, they tell you that everything that happens in the temple is sacred. It's not